Have you ever wondered what little bees dream about when they quietly sleep? A dream full of fragrant flowers and sweet nectar, or perhaps a prosperous future for an entire ecosystem. Bees, the tireless pollinators, may sleep like we do, but their sleep holds a much deeper meaning, connected to life and the growth of countless plants. And did you know that when they don't get enough sleep, an entire plant world can be altered? That's why you and we need to learn about the dreams of bees to better understand this beautiful world. If you're curious about the unexplored, don't forget to subscribe to the Smart Sleep channel to join me in uncovering these amazing secrets. Bees, a small insect, yet they carry a mission so grand that no one could have ever imagined. They appear on flower petals, busy with their work, gathering nectar, transferring pollen from one flower to another, and in doing so, they ensure the survival of an entire plant world. It is hard to imagine life without them, because without bees, countless plants would be unable to bloom, bear fruit, and many of the foods we depend on would gradually disappear from the daily lives of humans and animals. That's why the role of bees in the ecosystem is irreplaceable, far more important than we realize. Perhaps you're thinking, bees are so small, they probably just do their job and can't affect the vast world this much. But did you know that the tasks bees carry out, though small, are steady steps in building the foundation of the entire ecosystem? Without bees, plants like flowers, fruits, and vegetables wouldn't thrive, and we would no longer enjoy sweet fruits or vibrant flowers. Even the herbivorous animals we raise would lack food, and an ecological circle would be broken. In fact, bees are the faithful pollinators, transferring pollen from one flower to another. This seemingly simple action has far-reaching effects on the entire ecosystem. A flower cannot pollinate itself. It needs the help of bees, silently flying from tree to tree, ensuring successful pollination and bringing sweet fruits to us. Thus, the existence of bees is not simply of insects frantically searching for nectar, but an essential part of nature's grand design. In this ecosystem, every species has an important role, no matter how big or small. And bees, with their seemingly humble task of pollination, are the crucial link that connects everything. Every time a bee flies away, it carries out an important mission, not only transferring pollen from one flower to another, but also carrying the hope for a bountiful harvest. When bees are absent, flowers cannot bear fruit, and plants cannot reproduce. An entire crop system would collapse, leading to an ecological imbalance, impacting all living creatures, including humans. If you think bees are simply harmless creatures, perhaps you haven't fully grasped their importance. Imagine a day when all the bees in the world suddenly vanish. Flowers will no longer be pollinated, plants cannot grow, and products like fruits, vegetables, or seeds that we eat every day will become rare and expensive. This will not only affect the food we consume, but also disrupt the entire global food supply chain. These consequences will spread, lasting, and threaten the stability of economies and human life. Bees are not just tiny butterflies fluttering in the air. They are the true keepers of balance, protecting biodiversity. They don't just pollinate decorative flowers or fruit trees we love. They also participate in the pollination of many wild plants, plants with significant ecological value, safeguarding natural ecosystems and enabling other species to survive. This means they help protect and sustain not only individual plant species, but also a rich and diverse ecosystem. Every day, when you see a swarm of bees diligently flying over flower petals, you may not think much of it, You might simply think they are searching for nectar, but if you look closely, you'll realize that these bees are performing a very noble task. They sustain the life of plants that you and I both know, silently contributing to the natural cycle without asking for attention or recognition. Yet, if we fail to recognize the value of these bees, one day we may have to pay the price for our negligence. Just as when you breathe or walk in your daily life, you don't think about how crucial those actions are to your survival. Nature is the same. Everything is interconnected, and bees, with their seemingly simple tasks, are the key to preserving life on this planet. Sometimes, we are so caught up in big things that we forget how the small things, like a bee or a flower, can change the world. So next time you see a bee flying by, stop for a moment, observe it, and think about what it's doing. Don't rush past what you see, because sometimes the simple and small things carry immense meaning. And never forget that each time a bee is lost, an entire piece of this ecosystem is lost as well. Finally, remember that the role of bees is not just a part of nature, but an essential part of our lives. Protecting bees is protecting the ecosystem, protecting our planet, and ultimately protecting ourselves. Let's appreciate their presence and understand that sometimes the smallest things are the most important in life. Bees, with their small appearance, are an irreplaceable part of the biological world. For us, bees may just be insects flying everywhere, but if we look closely, we will see the wonder in each bee, a mysterious and colorful world hidden in their every movement. If you stop for a moment and observe them, you will realize that each bee has its own story, a unique biological feature, and all of this connects in a perfect relationship that ensures the continuity of life in nature. Remember a moment when you saw a bee flying in a field of vibrant flowers. You couldn't help but be amazed at its skill and precision. It seems that every step that bee takes is a perfect decision. Every flight a map, a biological map that only the bee can read. It's not randomness. It's a skill that has developed over millions of years of evolution. A skill that helps them identify flowers and choose the ones most suitable for their survival. This is the wonder of how bees and their environment harmonize to create balance in nature. Bees are not just small insects. They carry fascinating biological traits that help them survive and thrive in such a complex world like nature. They have a miraculous ability to recognize flowers, which not only helps them find food but also determines the survival of the plants they pollinate. A bee can identify which flowers are suitable based on the shape, color, scent, and even the structure of the flower. This special ability helps them choose flowers with abundant nectar, providing energy for the bees and ensuring effective pollination for the plants. In fact, each species of bee interacts differently with different flower species and has developed specific pollination methods to suit its environment. Bees work tirelessly, flying from one flower to another, carrying out a silent yet crucial task. Their journeys are not just about seeking food, but also about the interaction between plants and insects, a wonderful fusion of different biological worlds. In order to carry out their pollination task, each species of bee has developed a unique mechanism, optimizing its ability to find flowers and transfer pollen. Some species of bees, like honeybees, have a unique flight path, flying in U-shapes or figure eights, allowing them to access many flowers in a single flight and ensuring high pollination efficiency. These bees not only help sustain plant life, but also help us maintain our food sources and protect biodiversity. What's remarkable is that bees' ability to recognize flowers is not based solely on ordinary senses, like sight or smell. There is a complex interaction between these senses, enabling bees to assess the quality of nectar and pollen from afar. They can see colors that humans cannot, like ultraviolet rays, which help them detect details that other insects cannot perceive. Recent studies also show that bees can distinguish between flower species and determine which ones offer abundant nectar and which ones are not worth their effort. This is not just a survival skill, but also a testament to the sophisticated evolution that nature has bestowed upon them. For each bee species, they develop unique strategies to optimize pollination. Some species may only pollinate one type of flower, while others can pollinate a wide variety of flowers. This specificity allows each bee species to contribute to the development of many different ecosystems. They are not only diligent workers helping plants grow, but also contributing to the maintenance of biodiversity, which is especially important in a world threatened by the negative impacts of humans. The way bees pollinate is a mysterious and wondrous journey. As they transfer pollen from one flower to another, those tiny grains of pollen become the bridge between the life of plants and other organisms in the food chain. Every time a bee flies by, it carries with it a mission, and through millions of years of evolution, bees have become experts in pollination, optimizing their flight paths and methods to reach flowers with abundant nectar, providing energy not just for them, but for the entire surrounding ecosystem. Have you ever wondered if these special biological traits of bees are the result of coincidence, or were they formed through millions of years of evolution? A process in which bees and the plant world learn to harmonize, each species optimizing its pollination methods to sustain life and the development of an entire ecosystem. It is these biological traits that help bees survive and thrive in a constantly changing world, creating a strong biological network where each species has its own role and mission. Can you imagine? A small insect like a bee could have such sophisticated skills, capable of identifying and selecting flowers using senses that we cannot see or feel. And every time they fly away, they contribute to the existence of millions of plant and animal species. Bees, though small, are tireless workers, invisible hands that protect life in nature, bringing life to flowers, fields, and ultimately, our very lives. Imagine a world without bees. We would lose these silent but crucial companions. We would no longer enjoy fresh fruit, inhale the fragrance of blooming flowers, and most importantly, the ecosystem we live in would cease to exist as it does today. So next time you see a bee flying by, take a moment. Reflect on the miracle nature has created for us through this tiny creature. And when we talk about bees, we cannot forget the deep relationship they share with the plant world around them. The way a small bee flies from one flower to another, like a bridge connecting different plant species, is a vivid example of the perfect cooperation in nature. Have you ever wondered if bees are aware that they are not just gathering nectar, but that they carry with them a larger mission? The relationship between bees and plants is, in fact, one of the most beautiful and profound examples of mutual cooperation in nature. An exchange, a helping hand, where both sides benefit. And through this connection, life on Earth continues to thrive. When you see a bee flying through fields of flowers or in a garden filled with colors, you might think they're just searching for nectar to energize themselves. But in fact, every time they fly by, they're carrying out a far more important task, a task vital to both their survival and the plant world around them. Bees do not just collect nectar and pollen to survive. They are the carriers of life for plants through the process of pollination. Both bees and plants have an inseparable relationship with each other, a silent but powerful and meaningful connection. You must know that without bees, many plant species could not grow and reproduce. Flowers would fail to bear fruit, fields would not bloom as we see them today, and for bees, they would have no abundant food sources from nectar, no life to sustain. That's why the relationship between bees and plants is not just an ordinary interaction. It's a close partnership where each species contributes to the survival of the other. Both need each other to exist. But why bees? Why are these tiny insects among the main pollinators for flowers? To understand this, we need to understand how bees pollinate. Every time a bee flies from one flower to another, they carry pollen from one bloom to another, helping them complete the pollination process. This is extremely important because it allows plants to produce fruits and seeds, which not only maintains the plant's offspring but also contributes to preserving biodiversity in nature. Bee pollination is the first step in a long chain of events that ultimately produces sweet fruits, seeds for germination, new plants, and sustains plant life. Through pollination, bees do not just help maintain plant life, but also help sustain biodiversity throughout the entire ecosystem. Each flower a bee visits carries a part of a vast plant world, and when bees carry out the pollination process, they not only sustain the life of that flower, but also that of other animals that depend on plants for survival. Fruit-eating birds, herbivorous animals, all have a close connection with bees and plants. Each species contributes to the overall development of the ecosystem. But what makes the relationship between bees and plants so special? It is the balance that nature has created between them. Plants provide bees with nectar for energy, while bees help pollinate the plants, enabling them to reproduce and grow. It is a perfect chain of events, where each component has its own role, and all are indispensable. This relationship is not just an exchange of food or life, but a part of an incredibly sophisticated natural system in which everything is connected and dependent on each other. Throughout this process, bees also take care of themselves and their environment. As they move from one flower to another, they are not just gathering nectar, but also creating a new cycle of life. The pollen they carry helps create new flowers, new plants, and new plant species. This not only helps maintain the life of bees, but also creates a rich and diverse environment for other animal species. Therefore, every time bees fly off, they are not just pollinators, they are also guardians of life in nature. However, in this relationship, both bees and plants must adapt and change to maintain this balance. Plants must also develop strategies to attract bees, such as producing vibrant colors, sweet scents, or unique flower shapes that make it easier for bees to find them. Bees, in turn, must develop biological traits that suit their survival, such as the ability to recognize flowers, optimize their flight paths, and efficiently collect nectar. This relationship is truly a continuous development journey, where each species must evolve, grow, and adapt to survive together in an ever-changing natural world. And it is in this cooperation that nature has created an unbreakable link between bees and plants. They are companions in the journey to sustain the life and growth of ecosystems. Without bees, many plant species would not survive, and without plants, bees would have no abundant food source. Both are dependent on each other, and this dependence creates a strong bond where life is sustained and continuously evolving. Perhaps you've never thought that every time you see a bee fly by, you are witnessing a part of life being created. The relationship between bees and plants is a long story of connection, exchange, and safeguarding life in a world full of challenges. But it is not only bees and plants, but also us, humans, who are part of this story. Without cooperation between species in nature, without the connections between them, our world would not exist as it does today. So, next time you see a bee flying over flowers, remember that it is not just a tiny insect searching for nectar. It is a part of the magnificent chain of events in nature, a part that helps sustain our own lives. And after hours of hard work under the sun, when the bees have finished collecting nectar and pollinating plants, they will find a quiet place, a comfortable space to rest and recharge for the next day. You might think that a small bee, with its fragile wings and strange body, doesn't need rest like we do. But in reality, sleep is just as important to bees as it is to us. Although they don't have long and deep sleep like humans, they still need time to recover, to be ready for the next flights. Like all living creatures, bees need rest, time to recover their strength and continue their work. However, the sleep of bees is different from ours. They don't sleep at night like humans, but their sleep can occur at any time of the day, especially when the environment is unfavorable or when they cannot find flowers to pollinate. The sleep of bees typically happens in short intervals, but is essential for maintaining their health and work performance. After a long day's work, bees will seek a quiet spot to relax and rest, allowing their bodies to recharge in preparation for the next pollination journeys. Can you imagine a world without sleep? Bees couldn't survive long without rest, because exhaustion would make it difficult for them to navigate, find flowers, and, most importantly, pollination would be severely impacted. The sleep of bees is nothing like humans. While they have short naps, it is an incredibly important part of their life. While we can easily fall into a deep sleep when night falls, bees rest at suitable times, when they are not required to be active, or when the environment is no longer favorable. On rainy days, when flowers are no longer blooming, when the weather turns cold and food sources are scarce, bees will seek shelter and rest. Their sleep may be comfortable, but it may also be a time of silence, when they cannot continue their search for nectar. This shows that even though bees are small, they must adjust their bodies to fit the external conditions in order to survive and thrive. Bees, with their miraculous biological system, are able to adjust their bodies to maintain life in a constantly changing environment. Just as humans face problems like stress or exhaustion after a long day of work, bees face similar challenges. Both species need rest to recover energy and rejuvenate. However, the sleep of bees is not a simple process. As the environment they live in can change quickly and can be challenging, they must deal with unfavorable conditions such as bad weather, lack of food, or attacks from other insects. When this happens, bees cannot work, and they must rest, even if it is just a short sleep, to prepare for the new challenges ahead. While the sleep of bees is not long, the recovery they achieve in that short time has a great impact on their work the next day. Bees' sleep is not simply resting to soothe tiredness, as we often think. It is also an important time for restoring body functions, enabling their nervous system to work more efficiently during their search for flowers and pollination. Moreover, sleep helps strengthen their ability to navigate and learn, which is crucial for their survival. Throughout the day, bees fly through hundreds or even thousands of flowers, and they must remember the locations of their favorite flowers to return to them next time. Short naps help bees consolidate their memory, enabling them to precisely locate flowers, nectar, and abundant food sources. As a result, bees can continue their work more effectively and accurately. In some studies, Scientists have shown that, like humans, bees experience deep and light sleep stages. When they sleep deeply, bees not only stop their activity but also go through a physiological process that helps them recharge their energy. Just as we recover after a tiring day of work, deep sleep helps restore their bodies, while light sleep keeps bees alert enough to avoid surrounding dangers. Thus, bee sleep may not be long, but it is extremely important for maintaining their life and work efficiency. So why is bee sleep so necessary? Not only because they need to rest to continue working, but because the survival of an entire ecosystem depends on the health and activity of bees. Sleep helps bees recover and prepare for their next task, pollinating flowers, sustaining plant life, and helping nature continue to develop. Along with sleep, they play an irreplaceable role in the life chain of this planet. Therefore, every time we see a bee flying by, we are not just seeing a small creature, we are witnessing a crucial part of the ecological balance. And behind those gentle movements, there may be a story of recovery, of short but precious naps, allowing bees to continue their noble mission. Bees need rest time because when they don't get enough sleep, their health will decline. The fields and gardens will be devoid of the life that bees bring, and that is why, despite being small insects, bees possess immense power in maintaining the life of plants, nature, and ourselves. Sleep, though brief and unlike ours, is a vital factor that helps bees maintain their role in the natural world, enabling them to keep flying and continue their noble mission. After hours of hard labor under the sun, when their tired wings have flapped countless times, these small bees will find a peaceful place to rest, shedding the exhaustion of a long day. But here's an interesting question, one that you may have asked yourself while watching bees fly over flowers. Do bees dream when they sleep? Certainly, they don't dream like we do, with colorful dreams or swirling images in their minds. But is there something special in their sleep? Could there be a silent dream, like a repetition of their journeys in search of flowers? Or is it simply that they are resting after long flights? While we can't know exactly what they dream, it's certain that their sleep, as a vital part of their life process, must play a crucial role, just like the other silent tasks they perform every day. Though we may not be sure whether bees dream of vibrant flowers or vast fields like human dreams, scientific studies have shown that bees actually experience very special sleep stages. These stages can be divided into deep and light sleep. Just like human sleep, when they sleep, bees may not experience strange dreams, but it is certain that they are doing something very important for themselves. Bees' sleep is not just a time for them to relax or recharge, but it is indeed a necessary physiological process to strengthen their memory and learning ability. This is especially important for them because to do their job well, pollinating plants and searching for sweet nectar, bees must remember the exact location of the flowers in their area. Imagine a bee, during its short sleep, may reminisce about the journey through each flower field. Remembering each flower, each tree, this is not just part of what makes bees experts in collecting nectar, but an essential factor in sustaining the life of an entire ecosystem. Bees must always remember where flowers are, where nectar is, where pollen can be found to continue their pollination work the next day. Their sleep doesn't only help them physically recover, but also helps consolidate their memory and orientation abilities, enabling them to continue their work more effectively and accurately. One reason sleep is important for bees is that the process of pollination, their main task, requires absolute precision. Without the ability to remember flower locations and pollinate those flowers, the entire ecosystem that bees participate in would not be able to sustain life. While bees' sleep is very different from human sleep, it is actually more complicated than we might think. Bees don't have long, deep sleep like we do, but they still need to rest to recharge their energy. Moreover, during their short sleep, bees are not just resting, but they may also replay their flower-searching journeys in some form of dream. This helps them reinforce their memory, preparing for their next pollination flights, not just flying randomly, but following a trajectory that has been learned and remembered day by day. Thus, bees' sleep is not just a simple physiological process, but also a part of their intellectual development. If you pay attention, you'll notice that bees have an incredible ability to fly with precise routes. They don't just randomly fly past flowers. Every flight has a clear objective, and each flight carries meaning. It is a trip to find food or pollinate plants. To do this, bees cannot rely on their instincts alone. They must depend on their memory, and it is during sleep that bees consolidate what they have learned during the day. Information about flower locations, food sources, and flight paths is recreated in their brains, helping them remember longer and fly more accurately. If they don't sleep enough or experience deep sleep stages, their memory will decline, affecting their ability to gather pollen and perform their pollination work. You might wonder, what do bees dream about in their sleep? While we can't know exactly, one thing is certain. Bees' sleep is not simply a matter of resting to regain strength. It is a process of learning, strengthening their memory, and an incredible coordination between their bodies and brains. Sleep helps them prepare for the next flights, perform their work well, and keep the ecosystem healthy. Every sleep of a bee, though brief, is part of nature's development journey. Even though they are small, bees carry enormous missions, and their sleep is an indispensable part of that journey. And if we return to the story of the bee's sleep, you will realize that sleep is not just a small part of their lives. It plays an incredibly important role in their health and the pollination work they do every day. Throughout the long day, bees tirelessly fly from flower to flower, gathering nectar and pollinating plants. But after each journey, when night falls, or when the environment no longer favors them, bees need time to rest, recharge, consolidate their memories, and, most importantly, maintain their navigational abilities. If bees do not get enough sleep, their ability to locate flowers or gather nectar will diminish, leading to unpredictable consequences that not only affect them but also have a direct impact on the entire ecosystem in which they play a crucial role. For bees, sleep is not just a way to relieve tiredness. It is an essential physiological factor that helps bees maintain their ability to pollinate effectively and perform their tasks accurately. On a long working day, when bees fly from one flower to another, they do not just collect nectar, but also help sustain plant life. The pollination process that bees carry out is incredibly important, not only for the reproduction of plants, but also for creating abundant food sources for animals and humans. But did you know that in order to do this effectively, bees must have good health, memory, and accurate navigation skills? And all of this completely depends on their sleep. Bees' sleep, much like human sleep, helps restore body functions, especially those related to their ability to navigate and remember. When bees fly over hundreds of flowers every day, they need to remember the locations of the flowers they've pollinated. Not only that, bees also need to retain information about food sources and the locations of nectar-filled plants. Without enough sleep, their memory will deteriorate, and this means they will not be able to perform their tasks properly. Bees might forget the locations of flowers, fail to find familiar food sources, and their pollination flights will become less efficient. The result will be a lack of pollination, leading to reduced plant yields, affecting the animals that depend on plants for food, and ultimately impacting the stability of the ecosystem. Furthermore, sleep also plays an important role in maintaining bees' navigational abilities. Can you imagine a bee that cannot find its way back to the hive, or cannot locate the flower fields or gardens they need to visit? This could happen if bees do not get enough sleep. When sleep deprived, the loss of bees' navigational abilities not only affects them but also causes serious consequences for the entire ecosystem. If bees cannot find their food sources or pollinate accurately, it can lead to an imbalance in nature. Plants will not grow, herbivorous animals will lack food, and humans will also suffer from this disruption. Therefore, bees' sleep is not just significant for them, but for all the living creatures in their environment. Thus, the sleep of bees is not a trivial or unimportant factor. It is a crucial element in the survival of many species within the ecosystem, including humans. Every sleep helps bees consolidate their memory, recover their energy, and maintain their ability to work efficiently. If bees' sleep is interrupted, or if they do not sleep enough, their pollination abilities will decline, and as a result, the ecosystem will experience negative impacts. In a world where species are tightly interconnected, the sleep of a tiny insect like a bee carries immense importance. So, every time you see bees flying over flowers, remember that behind their flights is a complex process, not only related to seeking nectar or pollinating, but also sustaining life on this planet. Without the precious sleep that bees get, all the wonderful work they do for nature would be interrupted, and we would witness significant changes in the ecosystem. Therefore, bee sleep is not just a part of their life, but a vital factor that helps maintain balance in nature. And when we protect bees' sleep, we are also protecting a part of the natural world we live in. Sleep for bees is an essential part of maintaining their life and that of the entire ecosystem. It not only helps bees recover their health, but also enables them to continue their important work, pollinating, sustaining plant life, and protecting biodiversity. In this way, bees' sleep is not just a necessary rest, but also a rejuvenating process that enables them to continue benefiting the entire planet. Can you imagine a world without these sleeps? A world where bees cannot work effectively and the life around them slowly diminishes? Therefore, don't forget that bees' sleep, though short and often unnoticed, plays a crucial role in maintaining the balance and life of the natural world. We have explored the sleep of bees and its importance to these small creatures, but there is something else interesting that I want to share with you. In the society of bees themselves, each sleep not only affects them personally, but also has a great impact on the community they live in. Bees are not solitary creatures. They are members of a highly organized society where each bee has a specific task. Imagine a world in which each individual has an important role, and the absence or decline in the performance of any one of them can affect the entire community. That is the society of bees. In the world of bees, organization is essential. A bee colony operates within a highly complex structure, with each bee having its own mission and role, and all working for the common good of the community. You might think that in such a crowded society, a tiny bee wouldn't have much influence, but the truth is quite the opposite. Each bee, whether worker, queen, or drone, contributes to the smooth functioning of the hive. They all have one common goal: to sustain the life of the colony, ensure its growth, and, most importantly, protect the future of the hive. When we talk about the society of bees, we must mention the sharing of work between the members of the community. Worker bees, drones, and queens all have specific tasks. Worker bees care for pollination, nectar gathering, and hive construction. The queen maintains reproduction, ensuring the survival of the hive. Drones protect the hive from attacks. Each role is important and indispensable, because if one of these members fails to do their job well, the whole hive will be affected. Therefore, when a bee does not get enough sleep, it cannot perform its job well, and this will impact the entire community. Bees' sleep is not just a simple rest after a long day of work. It is an integral part of maintaining the life of the entire colony. Sleep helps each bee restore energy, consolidate memory, and maintain navigation skills. If a bee does not get enough sleep, its ability to work decreases, leading to inefficiency in tasks like pollination, nectar gathering, or even hive defense. This lack of efficiency will directly affect the colony, reducing its performance and possibly leading to the weakening of the entire community. You can imagine if one worker bee fails to do its nectar gathering job properly, the colony's nectar supply will decrease. This impacts not only the worker bees but also the queen and drones, as the food supply for the entire colony diminishes, and the queen's reproductive system will be affected. If the hive doesn't have enough nectar and pollen, the bees cannot maintain their health, and as a result, the hive will weaken over time. You can certainly see that bees' sleep in such an organized society is not an isolated factor that only affects the individual. Every sleep has a ripple effect, influencing the entire functioning of the community. Therefore, if a bee does not sleep enough, it not only weakens its own pollination abilities but also disrupts the pollination process for the entire bee community. They cannot find the flowers on time, cannot bring nectar back to the hive to nourish the next generation of bees. If a bee does not get enough sleep, this disruption can lead to a negative spiral in the hive, reducing its ability to recover and the community's survival. For the queen bee, her sleep is also crucial. The queen, though not involved in pollination or nectar gathering, is the heart of the hive. A healthy queen is the key to the colony's reproduction and development. If the queen does not rest enough, her health will deteriorate, and her reproductive ability will be affected. This will disrupt the development of the colony, as the queen will not be able to lay eggs to maintain the bee population. So, sleep affects not only an individual bee, but also has far-reaching impacts on the entire hive. When you think about bees' sleep in such a tightly organized society, you will realize that each sleep is not just necessary for an individual, but an integral part of a series of events that help maintain the life and development of the entire community. The rest of each bee creates latent strength, helping them work more efficiently and maintain balance in the hive. And in a world where each individual plays an important role, bees' sleep is the key to ensuring that every member of the colony remains healthy and works effectively. When you look at a bee colony, you will see a community full of cooperation and connection. Every bee, no matter how small, plays an important role in the survival of the hive, and in each sleep, though brief, they are not just resting, but also regenerating energy, strengthening health to continue doing their work. Bees' sleep is not just a physiological factor. It is the deciding factor in the existence of the entire colony. So, every time you see a bee colony, remember that it is not just a small community, but a tightly organized society where every sleep plays a crucial role in maintaining life and prosperity for the hive. As summer arrives, the hive bursts with life, all the bees tirelessly flying back and forth, gathering nectar, pollinating the blooming plants. The entire bee community lives in a hurried yet energetic rhythm. However, when winter comes, an inevitable change occurs in their lives. Bees, like all creatures in nature, must change their habits to adapt to the new conditions. And this is especially important because it doesn't only affect the bees but also has a profound impact on the vast ecosystem they participate in. We have explored the importance of bee sleep and its role in their survival and the ecosystem. However, there is a concerning issue we cannot overlook. The changing environment, climate change and pollution are now affecting bee sleep in ways we never imagined. Imagine those small bees, the tireless workers of nature, can no longer sleep as peacefully as before. Surrounding factors such as artificial light and changing temperatures are disrupting their sleep, which in turn affects the noble work they perform every day. Climate change is no longer something distant. It is impacting every corner of the ecosystem, including the bees. Bees are not the only species facing these changes, but they are one of the species that can help us recognize the serious problems at hand. As you know, bees are closely tied to their biological rhythms, with distinct sleep, activity, and working cycles that follow the seasons. When the environment changes, especially the temperature and light, these cycles can be disrupted. Bees, like many creatures, are very sensitive to environmental changes, and when there are alterations in temperature or light, their sleep is interrupted, making it difficult for them to work as efficiently as before. If their sleep is disturbed or altered, it will affect their pollination abilities, which in turn affects the survival of many plant species, animals, and ultimately, humans. One of the factors that strongly impacts bee sleep is artificial light. At night, when everything around them seems to fall asleep, bees still need time to rest. However, artificial light from street lamps, house lights, and electronic devices has changed their sleep cycle. Normally, at night, bees would settle in their hive, maintain a quiet state, and sleep deeply to restore their energy. However, artificial light causes light pollution, making it hard for bees to distinguish between day and night, leading to them staying awake too long and not resting properly. Such disrupted sleep not only impacts their ability to navigate and recall nectar sources, but also affects their pollination process. If bees do not sleep enough, they cannot work effectively, and when they cannot work effectively, pollination will decrease, leading to a decline in plant development, with significant consequences for the entire ecosystem. Moreover, climate change and global temperature increases also affect bee sleep in a very particular way. Temperature is a key factor in regulating bees' biological rhythms. In conditions of excessively high or low temperatures, bees cannot maintain their normal activity cycles. When the temperature is too high, bees may become energy depleted and will need to reduce their activity to avoid exhaustion. On the other hand, when the temperature is too low, bees cannot operate normally. They cannot fly to gather nectar and perform pollination. Both of these scenarios disrupt the crucial work that bees do, leading to negative impacts on the ecosystem. If bees' sleep is affected, not only will they be unable to work, but plants will not be able to flower or bear fruit. Herbivorous animals will lack food, and all this will create a chain of events affecting the entire natural world. In addition to light and temperature, another factor disrupting bee sleep is environmental pollution. Air pollution, toxins in water, and chemicals in the soil are all having a strong impact on bee life. Pesticides, though used to protect crops, inadvertently harm bees. These chemicals not only kill bees but also weaken their health, making it difficult for them to perform their pollination duties properly. Once bees' health declines, their pollination abilities are reduced, directly affecting plant growth. Furthermore, when bees' habitats are polluted, their hives also face many problems, from the inability to build strong hives to a loss of their ability to thrive. This reduces the number of bees in an area, impacting pollination in that area, and indirectly leads to a loss of biodiversity. So, if bee sleep is disrupted, all these consequences will not only be a problem for bees, but for the entire ecosystem. When bees cannot work effectively and perform pollination, the growth of plants will be interrupted. The plants that rely on bees for pollination will not be able to reproduce, leading to a decrease in plant populations, a reduction in biodiversity, and ultimately affecting our food sources. Herbivorous animals will not have enough food, and the entire natural food chain will be disrupted. Not only that, we, humans, will face the negative impacts of this imbalance, from a lack of agricultural products to environmental repercussions. We live in an era where everything is changing rapidly, and protecting nature, especially protecting species like bees, has become the responsibility of each one of us. Without bees, without pollination, the ecosystem cannot function as it does now. And when bees' sleep is disrupted by environmental changes, everything will start to change in ways that are unpredictable. Therefore, protecting the environment, reducing pollution, and minimizing the harmful effects of climate change is not only a task for today's generation, but also a responsibility for future generations. The sleep of bees may seem simple, but it hides an incredibly important role in maintaining life on this planet. When we protect bees' sleep, we are also protecting the life of millions of other species, including ourselves. In our lives, bees always do the silent, yet incredibly important work, pollinating plants. You have likely heard about the essential role of bees in helping plants reproduce, but have you ever paused to consider the consequences of disrupting this pollination process? If bee sleep is affected, for example, by environmental changes such as light pollution or climate change, the entire pollination process may be interrupted, leading to serious consequences, not only for the bees themselves, but also for our planet. When there are not enough bees to pollinate plants, the reproduction of plants will decline, directly impacting agricultural productivity and the economy, as well as the sustainable development of humanity. The story of bees, their sleep, and the pollination process may be something we don't often think about, but it is a crucial part of the life cycle on Earth. Bees are tireless pollinators, flying over thousands of flowers each day to gather nectar and pollen. Their job is not just about seeking food, but also about maintaining life for the entire ecosystem. When they pollinate, they enable plants to reproduce, helping them flower, bear fruit, and produce seeds. An entire plant world would not survive as it does today without the small bees. But what would happen if bees' sleep was interrupted? Bees do not just need rest to recover energy. Their sleep also helps consolidate their memory and ability to accurately locate flowers, so they can perform their pollination work effectively. If bees cannot sleep enough or their sleep is disrupted, they will not be able to work effectively. This could lead to incomplete pollination, affecting plant reproduction. When the pollination process is disrupted, plant reproduction will decrease. You can imagine that, without bees helping with pollination, the crops we depend on like fruits, vegetables, and other plants, will not be able to bear fruit. The decline in pollination will reduce the number of plants, directly affecting global agricultural production. Each plant species plays a different role in the natural food chain and in our economy. For example, edible flowering plants, such as apples, oranges, almonds, and tomatoes, all depend on bees and other pollinators to maintain their yields. Without these pollinators, these plants will not flower, will not bear fruit, and a large portion of our food supply will be affected. Not only edible plants, but also other plants like decorative flowers or trees that provide wood will be impacted by disrupted pollination. A loss of these plants would mean losing living spaces and the biodiversity they bring. The ecosystem would become poorer, which would negatively affect the stability of natural systems, impacting all animals and humans. Without bees for pollination, the food chain and our existence will become more vulnerable than ever before. This also leads to a big question. If there is no nectar, no plants, how can we sustain agriculture? When pollination is disrupted, affecting plant reproduction, the economy will also face significant challenges. The agriculture industry, which heavily depends on pollinators like bees, will experience reduced crop yields, leading to rising food prices and potentially food shortages for humans. Herbivorous animals will not have enough food, affecting livestock industries. The food shortages will also lead to nutritional and health problems for humans, as we will not be able to produce enough food to feed a growing population. Moreover, reduced crop yields will impact economies that depend on agricultural products, weakening the food processing industries and affecting sustainable economic development. In this context, we can clearly see that bees' sleep and their pollination work are inseparable in maintaining life and development on this planet. If bees' sleep is interrupted, it will not only affect them, but also impact the entire food chain, the ecosystem, and the economy. This makes us realize an important truth. Protecting bees, protecting their sleep, is protecting life on Earth. Therefore, minimizing pollution, protecting the living spaces of bees, and maintaining natural factors that help them thrive are key steps in protecting the future of plants and agriculture. To ensure the survival of bees and their pollination work, we need to act now, reducing the negative effects of climate change, light pollution, environmental pollution, and other factors. Protecting bees is not just about saving one insect, but it is about protecting an indispensable part of the life cycle, ensuring the sustainable development of this planet. Bees' sleep, although seemingly simple, is the key to maintaining life and protecting nature and our future. When we protect the sleep of bees, we are not just protecting one species, we are protecting the entire planet, safeguarding life and the future of all of us. You can close your eyes now, letting your thoughts dissolve like mist. If your mind still wants to wander, let it continue its journey to the next video, where we'll dive deeper into the mysteries of the soul. But if your body is tired, let this sound lull you into sleep. No need to try, just breathe. And remember, everything you're searching for is quietly resting within yourself.